Call meeting to order, roll call.
Hey, Mayor Westergaard,
Yes.
Moeller,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Wolfman, Reese.
Yes.
Okay, public forum. Eric, did you want to say something?
I just, as a city parks temporary employee, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank the administration and the council for buying us that Kubota tractor, because it has saved ourselves a lot of time and trouble. We've already got 54 hours on the machine, the campground road.
Was that this week?
Well, even amongst all the rain and everything else, we still got 54 hours on that thing, you know. And we use it to blade the roads are in really good shape in the campground. You use it to till up, we save the city some money by tilling up the community gardens instead of contracting that out. We tilled up some of the ground at the library to seed half of it to grass and get the other half in gravel. I know Steve has used, to spread four dump truck loads of gravel in the campground. It's just been indispensable, and it's at our fingertips all the time, so we're having to, argue or try to arm wrestle with the other guys to get the skid loader, which is a hard thing to get hold of, So I'm just very pleased that you guys, replied to our request for an implement of our own use down there, which the other guys can use it too, but primarily a parks campground thing. And Steve and I are both very happy campers down there because we can have this thing ready to go whenever we need it.
Great.
So that's all I have.
We'd like you to be happy. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do.
Will you use it too for the beach, for the?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that'd
Yeah,
be great.
we've taken out part of the tines on the rake, but the city had to implement a rake, and we've taken out part of those tines to rake the beach, so that'll work great on the beach.
That's good.
And Steve has made a couple other implements, homemade implements that have been used a lot down there already. So
Yeah, I heard that, so.
It's indispensable,
Thanks for taking the time to come.
yeah.
We'll probably see it in the parade then, I take it.
We'll have to wash it, before we do that, but we're very proud of our little tractor.
Good. Thank you. Consent agenda, any additions or corrections?
Nope.
Motion to approve? So moved. Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Wolfman,
Yes.
Moeller,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Reese.
Okay, sip and sample, gotta close the streets.
Yes, the event will run largely the same as what it has in the past couple of years, as far as the street closures. The timing of it is the same, it runs 2 to 5:30. Just expect that it'll be a little bigger again as far as number of vendors and then also the number of participants, so we're hoping for good things again.
I'll make a motion that we approve that.
Second? So roll call.
Tom,
Yes.
Wolfman, Reese,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
We'll also have to have a motion to approve the liquor license.
So.
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call.
Moeller,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Wolfman,
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Okay, resolution 1918 on the permit fees.
Yeah, you wanna talk a little bit about a different structure potentially for permit fees? On page 6, if you look on page 6, that's what the other communities had charged for permit fees. And then also asked them whether they do site inspections. I was really surprised about how many do not even do a site inspection. I was really surprised by that. But you see that a lot of them are just flat fees. Some of them are incremental based upon the value of the construction. And then the unique one, really unique, was Rockwell City, based on square footage, and having a different permit fee for they call them non-living and non-commercial structures. Those would be sheds and decks and that type of stuff. And so the fee for that would be a little bit less than what they were for residential or commercial structures. And then also Sac City has a multi-tiered type of an arrangement. I guess I'd be really interested in hearing what your thoughts are.
Well, of course, I'm the one that wanted, the fees looked at. I just felt like based on dollar amount was too vague, so I like the square footage thing. Either that or I think it could be a flat fee. Like like they've done here for the new homes and that kind of thing. I do, and I know that we take a loss on some of the things that the building inspector inspects, like on the little things. So I think we need to cover that in the bigger things, and I kind of think that, that building inspector should be paid a little more than he's paid. He's gone back numerous times on some of these projects, and I just think that it should be based on some of that, how many times he has to go back, or if that's always the same with the house versus a shed, or. I just would like to see the policy changed, but I'm open to suggestion.
Yeah, I looking at this, I agree about the fee for the building inspector. He goes through a lot for what he has to do, but as far as the fee structure, you know, we're not too much different than anybody else.
Well, we are, because ours is based on dollars.
Well, yeah,
I mean, we're similar, I suppose if you wanna say we're similar to something, it'd be similar to Lake City, only theirs is broke down a little more, but
right.
I just think that hasn't been working for us.
I talked with Don from Manning too about how theirs worked, and again, the value of that is determined by the applicant, so.
I just don't think that's a good policy.
It was based on,
I don't think that's a good policy either.
per thousand, but yeah, the value is determined by the applicant.
Not unless you're gonna require some kind of documentation, and that just seems to me like a whole lot more work, so I just think flat fees are better.
Sure. Yes, I would have something that I would offer to you. We have a rule that says, structures, 150 square feet or bigger, like sheds. Sheds that are 150 square feet or bigger, they need to be on a foundation or a slab. If you can use that 150 square feet maybe as a little delineation point and say 150 square feet or less for sheds and housing conditions and that type of stuff would still be a lower fee, which I'm thinking at $50, and then all decks would be that too, and then anything in excess of that would be a higher fee, which might look at $75.
I'm in favor of that.
Decks and sheds, you're talking?
You know, decks and most sheds, you know,
So you're.
100, things that are 150 square feet or less,
So
okay?
is it,
So a 12 by 12 shed is still 144 square feet.
is that gonna help to cover the cost of the building inspector going out? However many times it takes?
Well, the fee for a building inspector is just a flat fee right now, it's $40. And he gets the $40 for the ones that can be a drive-by inspection once, because they're pretty easy, but he also gets $40 for the ones where he might have to go back 6 times to confer with the homeowner, so.
So, do you go back a minimum number of times on a large addition or a new home, or is it just depend on the project?
Depends on the project.
So you've done some new homes just kind of one time?
Well, I go out first to make sure they have their setbacks, and then I go back when they're pouring their footings to make sure that those are in the right spot,
So it's at least 2.
at least 2.
And do you go back on the finished product or not?
Yeah, when I start seeing basement walls go up, main level walls go up,
So
you get a pretty good idea once you see the foundation up
Right.
of what's about to happen.
So see, you got $80 right there, even $75 doesn't
We
cover it.
we only pay $40
Right.
total permit.
Right,
for
but
the
if you
permit.
paid him 40 per time, I mean, see, I just think that, I just think
I like
he-
Kyle, but I wouldn't pay him $40 for that.
Well, no, but I'm saying,
Make it a
I
daily
think,
occurrence.
I think he should have
You'd be
more
out there
money
daily.
than that.
I'll just drive around the lake constantly.
Yeah, I think he should have a little more money than
And
that,
then bill us for mileage.
and I'm in favor of $100 fee for anything that exceeds the shed. But I know Whitey was talking 75, so whatever the rest of you do.
So then you was gonna raise his to, what, 40 for the first one and an extra 10 or something, or 20 for the second, if you have to make more than one trip?
I don't know, or just raise his flat fee, you know,
Oh, well, whatever.
And we don't
Well,
charge
so
first,
we
we
don't
don't have a site fee then, or we don't do anything as far as a site inspection goes.
No.
Well, we don't need to do anything about Kyle's paid now, we just gotta figure out
Right.
the building.
You don't need to, I guess you could if you wanted to, but you don't need to.
But I do feel like in the past, we got into trouble because we didn't go back and look at the siding, remember that? A couple, 3 years ago, we had this huge uproar, because we didn't go look at the siding. And the comment made by the building inspector at that time was, I don't usually go back and look at the siding. But then, you know, somebody notices siding that they don't like, and then they bring it up, and, you know, it just creates a controversy.
I would be in favor of $100 for houses.
That's kinda where we're at, cause you can't really do a house for under $50,000.
Well, you can,
Well,
and have.
if the price is left up to the applicant, you know, that's,
True that. $100 for a house and
I think $100 for anything larger than the sheds and decks. Do you have any input, Kyle? I don't-
Doesn't matter to me.
I think,
Look at the same guy.
I think it sounds like a fair price, you know,
I do too.
for a building inspection to be $100, you know.
I do
Not
too.
the inspection, but the
the permit.
permit,
Because most of the time he's gonna go back,
right.
so
But yeah, so we wanna make that.
I'll make that motion that we,
And I'll second.
Well, need to find this out for sure. So,
Okay.
where we at, $50 for all of the structures at 150 square feet or less? And then $100 for everything over that?
So that's a 12 by 12 shed?
12 by 12 would still be $50.
So then anything over 12 by 12 would be,
Yeah, you really get into the size where it's much more like a garage instead of a shed, so,
right?
yeah.
Okay, I don't plan on building anything, so.
That's what your motion is gonna reflect on.
Besides, he lives close, you don't have to drive around.
Now, my understanding of this is that this deals only with building permit fees and it didn't do anything in regards to the building inspector pay.
We could do that, this is what we're gonna
Very good.
do. Do the roll call now.
Alright. Was I the only one who was confused about what's going on, or everybody else is on board?
do you have
with-
any input from those in attendance? Apparently not.
So just that we passed this resolution stating that the fee is $50 for all structures, 150 square feet or less, and that includes additions, decks, sheds. But, you know, I guess I do wanna, I would intend to write that up so that it basically allows for all decks. I mean, you can pretty easily get bigger than a 150 square foot deck.
I agree.
Okay.
I think decks and sheds should be in a different category unless, I don't know.
The,
Chris, every once in a while people ask about fences. Where do those fall in there?
sure, we do have a special fence permit,
Okay.
and that is a $50 permit fee for a fence.
But the cement on the ground there's no permit for that.
Anyway, we ask them to fill out a permit and it's free. It's more informational, so we know what they're doing and know whether they're covering any easements.
Right.
Covered up water shut-offs. Don't do that.
I just wanted to make that clear that, there's no charge for that. Unless you have to dig new water.
You happy with it?
Yep, I'm
Okay, roll call.
okay. Thomas,
Yes.
Mulder,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Boltman.
Yes.
Does anybody have a suggestion to raise Kyle's pay? We're here.
I'd like to, throw a figure of $60.
I would second that.
That wasn't a motion yet,
Oh,
but I will make that motion.
okay.
$60 for the building inspector.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call.
We're not really just doing that because
Yeah,
you're
okay.
I didn't know if you want to back it the last three weeks.
We've been talking.
We've been tossing that around.
Roll call.
Okay, Boltman,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Mulder,
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna approve the personnel time management system.
Yeah, just,
We'll be here on time.
the policy has been presented to the union, they had some minor wording changes about clocking in and clocking out, and, you know, really nothing, of substance. And those have been incorporated in there. She posed a couple of different questions, just raising issues, but there's been no substantial change from the previous version, and it is ready for approval. Now, it would actually go into effect then when we get the computer program. We don't have that yet. But I would like to get the policy in place, and we hopefully will be getting that installed. I wanted them to shoot toward before Memorial Day, so that we can
What were
really
the-
start to use it for our
What were
summer
the
folks.
changes? Do you remember? I didn't compare it to the previous
Yeah.
one. I was just curious.
You know, where it said that you would clock out, and then she said that you needed to, or clock in, and then she said you needed to clock back in. I mean, these were some minor wording changes, you know, other than one, and it dealt with discipline, and we had that discipline will be administered, and it would change to discipline may be administered.
Any more questions? Do you have a motion to approve the standard operating procedures?
So moved.
Second,
I'll second it.
roll call.
Muller,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Okay, we gotta appoint another member to the P and Z to replace Mary Ann.
Yeah, so this would replace Mary Ann Monroe. And we've had two folks show interest, and that's Catherine Richardson and Bart Thorson. I don't know if you know too much of them. Bart is a fire department member and is, I think, a banker. And Catherine, they've moved to town here within the past couple of years, and Catherine's been on our housing committee now for a while. And her background is in the sciences. I think she's a scientist of some sort, but,
Bart is also a owner of the, part owner of the Thirsty Car.
Thirsty Car, you bet. One thing I do need to, I think, point out to you though is, state laws on gender equity on the boards. And, that, you know, the remaining board members are Nathan Beckman, Steve Shodden, Gary Wicker, and then Linda Drilling. So it may be in our best interest to have another female on the board.
Well, that either one of them would make great board members. I would like to see people active in the community, especially the business people. But I do think Catherine could bring an outside look to some things. Sometimes, you know, we get kind of mired down and we don't take a fresh look at things. Plus, I do like the diversity.
I think, can we visit with each of them or anything? I mean, I don't know her at all.
She was at the meeting here a while back.
So I,
She's on the housing committee, aren't you on the
Yes.
housing committee?
well,
Oh, just wondering.
I mean, same thing with Bart. I don't go out and have drinks with them or anything like that, or,
Oh, well, I don't either.
you know, I don't know him personally.
I know him, but
I
not.
don't know, you know, I'd like to find out, you know, why they think they'd be good on the planning and zoning. There's, you know,
Reasonable request.
Last time I had somebody come, it did work out very well.
Yeah, I guess if we wanna, ask them to come to the city council meeting, we'll have some questions ready for them and stuff, and have some real dialogue with them. Last time we didn't end up with a lot of dialogue
We
between
did.
our candidates, and it felt awkward if nothing else.
yeah, it feels awkward deciding on who it might be without hearing from them in some fashion or another.
I guess when they're throwing their hat in the ring, so to speak, maybe that should be one thing that's considered is, okay, if you would like to volunteer, can you maybe just put up front, where they wouldn't have to necessarily come here, but, you know, what is it that you hope to bring to the table, so to speak, you know?
You know, we've kind of
Why are
talked
you-
about that too, about, you know, should we have an application process or something like that for board members, which we haven't.
We're lucky that
We're
we
lucky.
get applicants.
Yes.
Right.
So I very appreciate the fact that we have two.
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice to have two people that are interested, and it's just changing, you know.
I'm sure there'll be other openings on other boards.
Well, we'll ask him to come 2 weeks from tonight.
So,
How's
do you
that?
wanna do that, or do you wanna just ask them to submit a little bio on what they think they can bring to it?
Right, I mean, that would suffice me, I guess, you know.
Sometimes it's hard to get people here, I'm just.
Right.
That might be a better way, just have them a paragraph or
Yeah,
something.
I like that idea.
Don't need a whole book, you know, just.
They're kinda echoey over there.
You know, what's it do?
She got the new battery.
New
We got
battery.
the new battery.
I got the high-powered one over here.
Okay, yep,
Okay.
we'll talk with them and have them, I wrote a bio and an interest statement.
Yeah, just,
Something like
I mean, that,
I think that's sufficient.
for me,
Okay, we have a contract for the Catalyst grant.
Yeah, I told you that I had a couple of concerns that needed to be addressed before I'd ask you to approve this grant, and the concerns have been addressed, and it dealt with item number 8 there on utilization of consultants. And it refers to these parameters that are set out in the agreement scope of work, which is attached here too. Well, there was nothing attached there. But I did have got a hold of them and talked through this. And, you know, initially they had said that they would reserve $5,000 of this grant for technical assistance, such as like architects. Now, it looks like that would change, and that the will not have a requirement for professional technical assistance. We will have to sit down with a couple members of state economic development. They really just want to go through the layout of the apartments. So that would be, I viewed that as very positive, so it's more money that can go towards Nate's project than instead. But with that, I'm ready for approval. Just know that we as a city now, we will have a development agreement with Nate Kelly. And that's a requirement of this contract also, that we gotta have this development agreement now. Of course, it has to do with other projects around the state that never came to be, or they had issues, and one of the big issues was about providing insurance. So it has to stipulate that they would provide insurance, which isn't a big deal for now. The buildings are occupied by them, so they have the insurance in place already.
But the
But,
money, okay. But the money goes to them after the project's complete, right?
So there's a couple different funding sources here, Terry, you know about the grant. This $100,000 grant. The city, what happens is Nate begins work on the project, gets $60,000 into it. If he can provide the receipts to the city then turns around and submits all that receipts into the state. $60,000 comes back through the city, but we turn around and reimburse it to Nate right away. So, you know, that part of the funding occurs more towards the beginning and middle of the project. The remaining part, the last $40,000, comes at the closeout of the project. And then also we had the city's grant match in there too, which, you know, the timing on that and when that would be allocated would be addressed in this development agreement,
And it
which
would
we're
be
looking
the
at
end.
the end, yeah.
I'd make a motion to approve the contract.
I second,
Roll call.
Tom,
Yes.
Muller,
yes.
Reese,
How much is our first petition?
$25,000.
We already voted to do that.
Yeah, we had committed that much.
Yeah, I think I passed last time.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think I'll pass again.
Older,
yes.
Okay. The,
that was abstaining then, Terry?
Yes.
okay, the next item on the agenda is economic development projects, but, now we're gonna use some tip on some projects coming down the road. Whitey's not here tonight, and this is a big change for the city, so I'd like to postpone till next Monday night, because that's when we'll have recommendations to rehire some, or to hire the city guys.
If we'll talk about that yet tonight on the different subject about public works staffing, but, on the public work staffing, you know, we do propose to have interviews with people. They're all scheduled for tomorrow night, actually. If we can get a special council meeting together right away, we can just, proceed quicker with the hiring and get somebody on board quicker.
Right.
But yeah, if you just wanna
We might have a chance to have Whitey
postpone
back.
the topic on this, that would be okay.
I would like to see that also, where everyone's there.
Cause I guess just a little update on this too, that, Tyson Beckman does not have his, construction costs together yet either. And he wanted to get these construction costs finalized before he'd be talking with the city and, you know, asking for assistance, but also committing to the project. You know, so he needed to get those, and he's still waiting for numbers from his contractor.
I'm in favor of an agreement. I think we need to have an agreement with every person that, you know, mainly this is gonna apply to the business section. Mainly, because, so like, but I do believe that the agreement ought to be set up similar to something like we have with Heath Carroll, and any city funds are gonna come in at the end when the project is completed. That's kind of where I'm leaning to, but I do think that the whole council should weigh in on
Definitely
it.
makes sense.
Was that a second to Tammy's motion?
I don't know, did you have a motion? I'm sorry.
That's okay, no problem.
Turn your microphone back
I was echoing.
That is a motion to table though, Tammy?
Yes.
Roll call.
Okay, Muller,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Boltman,
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
We're planning on having that meeting Monday night, you're all invited to come back. We're not kicking the can down the road, there's no Whitey here. It's a lot of money.
Are there any public comments about the whole process?
I'd like to know how you set up this TIF areas. I mean, how do you pick this zone and not this zone, but this zone? Whether it's residential or business?
Scott probably can address this more than
We've
me.
done it different times over the years.
Yeah, and it's been established originally and then amended, I think, 3 other times over the years. But the concept though, Mike, is that you would include lands that are ripe for development. And where you figure things are changing. So, you know, a lot of that dealt with downtown. Last time that this last amendment was done, dealt with downtown. And then a couple of these other parcels that are adjacent to it. Like Gus Cleveland's property is included with this, and some other areas where you feel, hey, maybe there's a chance that something can happen there and that the city could participate in it and utilize TIF funds, because the TIF funds can only be expended in an urban renewal zone. Okay, now, and this happened the same concept then with Dale's property out there, looking at that as a potential housing development area, and that's why it was included.
Okay.
TIF, in my opinion, should be used mainly for commercial development.
Then why did Rubens get put in on it? That's residential.
Well, it is owned as
TIF.
commercial, but again, it's just some potential development lands there fronting the highway. You know, it has lots of potential other uses there that could, you know, the city could participate in.
There's a lot of guidelines on the state level for how you use TIF, how you get TIF, how you use it, and it can be abused. And so I don't think it's to put up a house here or a house there. If you're talking about a housing development, or, you know, that's different.
So we don't wanna make any housing developments because that's not a commercial, zoning, is that what you're saying?
I think the first focus should be on the commercial. So for instance, when Chris was developing, I felt like we should have used TIF funds there. That was prior.
When who was?
When Chris was
Chris was.
putting in the hardware. And TIF funds can be used to bring infrastructure in, you know, sidewalks, electrical in, you know, things like that. There are specific guidelines for it. you know, that's why I wasn't in favor of it being used for the city shed, because I think TIF funds should generate revenue in the basis of either an increased tax valuation, or it should be an amenity that the community as a whole can use, or in some way increase your taxation base, which a new house does, but you cannot use TIF funds to put up a new house here, here, or here. You cannot do that on the state level.
Well, that's,
And what constitutes a housing development, I think, I for one wanna do some more research on that, because, what Bobby Terrell was doing out there is a more of a development. But to tell me you're gonna put up a house or two houses, I don't know about that, I guess, I'm gonna do a
I
whole lot more
guess
research.
that's where I'm in a gray area.
Right.
Reardon's, it's residential, and you aren't gonna put more than 2 houses back in there, but yet the funds were used there. I mean,
Is that right?
it's,
Because I thought the houses weren't in the TIF zone.
well, it's all part of the property. I mean, the
It was-
salvage yard wasn't separate from the house.
They're all, there are certain parcel numbers that are included in our district. I wanna confirm that, but, there's 2 big parcels that are the old salvage lot, and those are included for sure, and I'm not sure that, Pauline's house is included. I
We
would
put it
wanna
in the
confirm.
TIF zone years ago, before we even knew that we were ever gonna get it cleaned up. It just identifies the place.
That was
now.
included in the last amendment, but it's just been a couple years ago.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
I guess I was I didn't think we were ever looking at a housing development down there. I figured if we were looking at something, it would be some kind of a commercial
Commercial.
development,
Because of the location.
because of
it.
the location, but the way I got it, Pauline's house, and none of that was in anything the city had to do with any of it.
So you're actually splitting up her tax base. I mean, you get on the tax rolls, and that is not separated down there. That's underneath Albert Reardon, or family now, not Albert, but.
But yet it is, Michael, because it's several different parcels that are included in that. For taxation purposes, you can look at it maybe lumped all together as that, but it's separate parcels.
Okay,
I just have a question then, so when Dale applied to change the commercial, you shot him down, so at that point you were basically shooting down TIF out there, if you were
No.
planning on using it for commercial?
Well, not necessarily, the zoning commission, to my understanding, put that in as an R3. And that's why we made it TIF, because we thought, if you were gonna put up duplexes, or you were gonna put up townhouses, or, because there was so much fuss about the previous plan out on the lake, then the zoning commission, the way I understood it, was looking at areas where could we have R3, because they didn't want it out there, or that was kind of shot down by the neighbors. So where can we have R3? So I thought the zoning commission looked at the whole town and said, where could we have R3? And that area of Dales was designated as it could be R3, which is multi-family housing. That's why it was put in the TIF. And then, if Dale's not obligated to develop it into that,
Correct.
that's what we were just kind of hoping that it would evolve to that. Or,
In
Not
order
even-
to use TIF, he would have to develop it into that, right? He would have to make a subdivision in order to use, that's the link there.
that's what I think, I mean.
That's, I
again,
just wanna get on the same
I'm
page.
gonna
Yep.
do-
That's
I'm
where
gonna
we're
do
going.
some more of my homework, because TIF is very complicated.
Yep.
And every time I dig into TIF, I learn something that I didn't learn before.
I understand.
But when they were gonna use it for that shed, even though it was legal, I was not in favor of that, cause I felt it was a poor use of TIF funds. And we've got this opportunity with TIF funds to do something for this community. That's my hope for the TIF funding, but I don't know that everyone's in agreement with that.
Anybody else?
TIF is used for redevelopment programs, which also includes cleaning up blighted buildings in your downtown district, or the Reardon property. That's one of the uses for TIF financing, is to clean those places up to make your community,
In fact, that was one of the original reasons it was developed, was to get rid of blight, especially in the smaller communities. So, you know, Dave's right, that was the original part of TIF, and then TIF's kind of evolved and it's gotten very complicated about where you can use it, how you can use it, what's legal, what's right, you know.
Anybody else will move on to recapping the downtown business owners meeting.
Yeah, I don't have really too much of a,
One question, I'm trying to think of how to word it properly. If I understand this, you know, we want more housing, we're looking for housing development, stuff like that, but at the same time, we don't wanna use TIF for that, you wanna push more TIF money to businesses.
Well, I don't wanna go on record as saying the wrong thing here. Again, you know, I'm gonna review TIF some more, I guess, but I thought that TIF was mainly it was to clean up blighted areas. I mean, that's spelled out right from day one in TIF. And it was a way for small communities to have some money to do some development. I think most of the development was focused on commercial development, to help your businesses, you know, like for Chris, to help him put in that new hardware store. To help these business owners on town do something with their building. How you give TIF can be complicated, and it can be just bringing in, you know, sidewalks, bringing in the sewer in from the main or whatever. And there's lots of lighting, you know, street lights, whatever. It was never intended for a single house and would never be approved
I'm
at the
not saying a
state
single
level.
house, I
But-
said a housing development of
Right.
some sort.
But I
You made
think,
a comment, and maybe I misunderstood it, but you wanted to see it more towards the commercial side and not to housing. And that's all, I'm just trying to understand if that's the way I.
So if there were plans for a potential housing development to go in there, you would have to know about those before you were going to be approving any TIF funding?
yeah. You know, like the Terrell project out there. You know, he's come with blueprints and blueprints and more blueprints, you know, and all this information about what kind of curb and what kind of lift station's gonna go in and all this stuff, you know, before any money ever gets targeted. A housing development of 2 or 3 houses, I just don't know for sure about that. My perception was more of like 6 duplexes or more, or you know, like some townhomes, but I guess I didn't have anything specific in mind, and then Dale said he wasn't interested in that at all, and so, you know, I really never gave it a whole lot more thought.
I think, I'm not positive, but he wasn't interested in the Region 12 deal.
We
He
never,
didn't want low-income housing.
I know, but that day we said, that's not exactly what this is, you know, he did not seem interested to me.
I was just
Because
trying
I
to
said to
clarify.
him then, there are programs to help, you know, whether it's TIF or whether it's a Catalyst grant or whether it's, I mean, there's all kinds of programs out there, you know, but he wasn't interested at the time, and so, but as, maybe Scott can address more how TIF can be used legally in a housing development.
I'm just trying to clarify the housing versus commercial part.
'cause
That's the way I understood that you said it.
I think my opinion of TIF was that the initial basis is on commercial. But is that exactly how it's written? I guess I don't know for sure, Nathan, I'd have to, from what I've read, that's where I always thought the TIF money would go. It comes from commercial, that's where the money comes from.
Right.
You know, it doesn't come from your taxes.
But it is keeping the tax base away from our school system.
No, it's not, because the state backfilled it.
what was that question again?
It's taking, TIF money is taking money from the Evapco and it's putting it straight to the school systems and that, and it's not, it's taking away what us individuals, all of us, pay in. I mean, in the long run, it is,
No,
The only way though, Mike, is if we didn't have a use for it, then the school would get it,
the
as far as
state,
I know.
the state backfills.
TIF money is,
Well, I mean, the state comes back to our taxes anyway, I mean, it all,
right,
The Evapco land, let's just take Evapco, cause Evapco pays in, Boulders pays in, Ryan's pays in,
That's the big ones, but yeah.
okay. So, the agricultural land the Evapco was built on is taxed at agricultural rate for whatever, how many acres, whatever there's there. That money keeps going everywhere. When then they built Evapco and then it changed to commercial and so now they're taxed at a much higher rate. And they have a building on there, so now there's more tax revenue. The difference between that original, that's the TIF.
Right.
And it comes into the city for what, 20 years?
Yeah, that's the most.
And it was, and the way I understood it, the school has always been backfilled. So the school benefits because if you didn't develop that land, they would be sitting there at that low rate. So eventually, after that 20 years, they're gonna get that high rate. So the school doesn't really lose in this deal. If it hadn't been developed, they would never have had it. The school, then, the state then backfills in while we're getting money. I believe it's a win for any community, but I think it ought to be used legally and I think it ought to be used wisely. But I'm not gonna tell you exactly what that constitutes. And
Is-
Scott knows a whole lot more about TIF than I do.
Well, and just know that, of course, the city has an urban renewal plan in place and it stipulates certain things, for which, TIF monies can be used. And it has. The last amendments say it had 3 or 4 different specific things that it would use for certain, buildings downtown, you know, potentially by the bike arch down there, but it also identified this, Dale's property and talked in generalities about housing. You know, so if you think about legal use of TIF funds for that property, you know, it certainly is legal, we could do this.